Hi, folks, and welcome to another episode of Careers and Coffee. I'm really excited to be welcoming on Rika Nauck from BT Adastral Park here in Suffolk. Rika is just absolutely phenomenal around careers, education, work experience, anything to do with raising aspirations of young people in Suffolk and beyond on the tech sector. Rika is the woman. So I'm going to bring on Rika to talk a little bit more about her career, the fabulous work that she does at BT, and get an insight into the tech sector as well. So welcome to Rika. Rika, good afternoon. How are you doing?
Good to see you. Good to see you. Yes, thank you for this wonderful intro. You can keep talking. Come on, give it.
I'm straight off the tongue. No, thank you so much for coming on and having a coffee with me. I mean, first and foremost, have you got a drink to hand?
There you go. I am on decaf now. I coincidentally had a caffeine withdrawal and then decided I come off the stuff because it's really, really bad when you run into that. So caffeine withdrawal is one of the worst things that you actually can get. So
do you have like no caffeine after 12, or is it just no caffeine at all?
See, that's what I used to do. That I thought, oh, so proud. I put it all in the mornings and I'm a good girl, no coffee in the afternoons. And then I got a migraine, 48 hours, no coffee. And I thought, right, that feels as if the migraine is gone, but there is something else really bad going on. And because I didn't have coffee for 48 hours and I seem to be quite addicted to the stuff. And so now I weaned myself off. So it's decaf, but it's still nice.
I like the style. Well, let's have a chat. So, tell me what you do at BT. Tell us what you do.
Righty-ho. Well, BT is a huge company, and I'm located in the east of Ipswich, Martlesham Heath, a big campus called Adastral Park, where BT lives here in Ipswich. And on that campus for BT, I'm work experience coordinator. Work experience in the traditional sense, but I do insight stays as well. Everything that has to do with young people coming on site and needing some sort of hosting and putting programs together. And that goes up to PhDs as well, because we have summer students as well. And that is one part of my role. And the other part of the role is Tommy Flowers Network, which is an organization that we are building that is supposed to be independent from BT and is a network quite prestigious of ICT companies together with universities for the benefit of postgraduate researchers. So that are the ones who are doing their PhDs and are really skilled in one bit and don't they sometimes lose sight of what else is going on in the world because they have to focus so much. So we are organizing conferences. So it kind of comes together where the PGRs or the postgraduate researchers are hosted on site. But it's basically two different parts of the job.
Fantastic, thank you. And Adastral Park, now I know that's a pretty interesting place. It's got quite an interesting history as well, because it's probably one of the most important locations for BT and the tech sector, isn't it?
Well, I think not a lot of people know what history is actually stuck in this place. It was during World War II. It was an airfield. They used to drill Spitfires from there. So Douglas Bader, famous wing commander, was flying from there. So there was an awful lot of action going on from Suffolk altogether, but from Martlesham Heath, you can see still old bits of the runway. And at one point, BT, back then, I think they were the post office, their research labs were just growing too big, and they bought the site. And the site that you see with this huge tower that looks like a radio tower, and we call it the radio tower, that is built in as a legacy, basically to show homage to the history of the site. And it was 1975 already that it was, or many years ago, that it was then opened and became the technology innovation headquarter for BT. It is
That's impressive
the
stuff.
spearhead of innovation for the big fat BT that there is. So all the stuff, or most of the stuff that gets rolled out, everything that you will see in the future in some way or form, has been developed, tested, rolled out from Adastral Park. And it is, for a few years now, home of a tech cluster called Innovation Martlesham as well. So on site is not just BT, but 140 something companies live there. Big ones, small ones, startups, one-man bands, and they build an incredibly vibrant environment in the ICT sector. Supporting each other, networking with each other. So whatever you're looking for, it's in some way or form at Adastral Park. So the place is lovely, has loads of green land. We have a nice hub. So if there is no COVID around, it's actually quite nice to be.
It's all good. And you know, I've been to Adastral Park many a times, and yeah, I think the tower is definitely it's almost like a landmark. I'm sure you've got the corner office at the top floor of the tower. But I want to I want to sort of rewind the clock a little bit and talk more about your career. But you know, let's start with when you're at school. You know, what was life like for Rika at school? And you know, did you get much career support when you're at school? Anything like what BT offers now?
Nothing whatsoever. See, I got lucky and unlucky at the same time. I was not bad, not good at school. Good average student, enjoyed most of the things, had some things that I didn't like, as you do.
Yeah.
Math, pretty rubbish, loved chemistry and biology. English, I only learned it when I came into the country. So, but my A-levels were just good enough so that I could go to university. And you think, well, that's what you do. Of course you do. But with what? Where? So, okay, chemistry is the best subject. So you go to university with your best subject matter, you apply. Yay, I got the university where my boyfriend is going to. It's a winner. And because he started a year early in computer science, you know, you want to be together. It's all nice and fine. But the main thing that was my driver for going to university, my parents were incredibly proud. None of my family ever went to university or finished it. So, of course, I was the one who makes the family proud. And I quite liked chemistry. I had no idea what a chemist does. You know, you just do. After 3 semesters, it was the absolute nightmare. I was never unhappier in my entire life. I was 21 years old, or 20 years old only. And I just couldn't stand it. And it made me physically ill. And so I just stopped. And of course, I stopped without telling my parents. So no, and but I had to, because they would have talked me back into it, and I wouldn't have been happy. There was nothing in it for me. So all the further decisions were always in the light of how do I make good to my parents again, and kind of do something where I know my ways already. I dared looking around. I went to job centers. That was the only advice that I probably got. I went to a job center. I think they had back then no computers, loads of little drawers with little cards where you can scavenge through. And I thought, milliner, joiner, that's the stuff I like. So I always was somebody who actually wanted to work with my hands. An apprenticeship would have been absolutely marvelous for me, but they were not available. And I grew up in an incredibly rural area. So there was not a lot around anyway. Having said all that, I learned rather late in life that this making your parents happy or do what the teacher says because, oh, if they say it, they will know, or so, might make things easier in a way of if it goes wrong, you can blame them. If you make your own mistakes, all you can blame is yourself.
That's very true.
But it would have done me good. Once I started making my own mistakes, and everybody said, "Oh, Rika, don't do that." And I said, "But I have to. I like the idea of doing it. And if it then went wrong, I could say, right, went wrong. So what? I'll do the next thing. I had many things going wrong, but now at least it went wrong on my own account. I took my own learnings from it. So yeah, that's why now I'm quite glad that I found my way into an area where I got a degree in the end, and my parents are proud of of me. I have a degree in computer science. Don't ask how I got that.
Question for a rainy day. I mean, in terms of what you talk about there, though, first generation to go to university, that is a lot of pressure on your shoulders. And I know that there'll be loads of other young people, and I think particularly from more sort of disadvantaged backgrounds, that they are going to be the first ones to go to university. It is a lot of pressure. What's your advice to a young person who sat there thinking, they've got perhaps parents and friends and family saying, "Oh, you don't want to do that," or it's too expensive, all of those sorts of things, those barriers. What's your advice to them? But they still want to do it. They're still super committed. What would you say to them? Because you've been in the same position.
Yes, definitely. It is really, really hard for a young person to put a foot down. If you like what you would be doing there, if you have a passion for it, don't even think about that it could go wrong. It might, but that doesn't matter. Just what I do today, if I'm in a situation like that, because if I wind back a little bit, when I was a 16, 17-year-old, I thought I learned all the rules that there are about life.
Yeah.
And once I've learned them all, then I'm grown up and everything will be good. It's not quite working like that. I still don't feel grown up. I still run into the same traps. It never ends. I don't mean that as an, oh my God, I don't want that. I mean it as a, you have to approach it differently. There are no rules to be learned. There are principles to be applied. That's a completely different matter. And you have to fail. Without failing, you don't learn. And what you have to keep in mind from a young age, and unfortunately, I learned it late, the people who advise you, they mean well with you. They don't want you to get hurt. They don't want you to be sad. And they don't want you to fail. But failing is the main principle of getting better and moving forward. And that's why it's so important. If something goes wrong, it has to go wrong on your own terms. That's when it then, in the end, doesn't feel like a failure anymore, because you took all those learnings from it, and you think, yeah, it didn't pan out, but you know what? I learned that. Off we go. We do the next thing.
I think that is brilliant advice. And I've just got a question in. So, and I was just thinking this as well. Yeah, you mentioned making mistakes regardless of what others have said to you. What's your thoughts on telling youngsters, young people at schools today, that it's okay to make mistakes, rather than perhaps taking the safer option? What do you think about
that? Again, it's really hard. I think we as grown-ups, and I'm a culprit myself, because I fall into the same biases and traps like the grown-ups that were the grown-ups in my young age, because I want you to succeed. I want you to be good. I want you to be happy. But the way forward really is to gather all the information there might be very valid points, and then you need to find your ways of dealing with it. Some people are very logical. They sit down and make tick lists, write it all down and say, okay, pros and cons, pros and cons. You go through it. And in the end, you have an indicator. And if you have sort of numbers accounted for. And if it then would say, do that, and your gut tells you, ew, I don't want to, then you know where you're standing.
Good
and
advice.
Sometimes in order to, it's like this game, if you have a choice between two things and people hide things behind their backs and say, okay, which one do you want? And you get the wrong one, then you know which one you really want. So playing these games, and sometimes it just needs go somewhere in the fields, know what you want and scream it out and gain that energy and thinking, I want to do that and I will find the money and I will go through. And you might, if it doesn't pan out, well, you will hear, see, I told you so. Just be prepared.
I think that's great advice.
They will come. They come anyway. They come whether you listen or you don't listen. Take your own choices.
And talking about young people as well, I mean, what are some of the skills you look for in young people at BT?
That pretty much goes along those lines as well. The young people come to us for work experience, especially the years 12, 13, and they are hoping to pick up everything technology that gives them that edge or advantage. They want to have factual knowledge. And this is actually something we don't want to see in assessment centers or in interviews, because that is what we are going to teach you. You will go to university, you will learn all these things, and you will put your own touch to all those things. We want to know that you are interested, that you are hungry, that you want to learn these things, that you have done similar things and now want to drive them forward in the sector where we are. And when I'm talking like that because I'm quite an extrovert person, don't be fooled that I mean with that you need to be an extrovert and that you have to talk all the time and need to bring yourself forward. When we are building teams, we need the introvert people as much as the extrovert people. If you have people in a team that only fire ideas, that team doesn't get anywhere. You need the ones who are stepping back, who are listening, looking at things. But if you are in an assessment center and you're more the shyer type, or the more shy type, you have to at least give us something that we can see that you're interested. Don't just sit there and don't say anything. That's the moments when you at least need to get a little bit out of your shell, because we know as soon as we see that a shy person comes out of the shell, they will be brilliant in teams. They will gain the confidence. They will get to know the people in the teams, and they will find their place and they will do a good job there. And so, yes, we need all character types. And we are not just going for the boisterous ones, but you need to show us somehow that you are interested in what the job offers to you.
I think that's really interesting. I mean, it made me reflect on the team I work in. Definitely got some extroverts in that one. And I mean, in terms of the tech sector, why do you find it why do you find it so interesting?
That's it's a bit a difficult question for me, because I failed so often in my career of making something out of the tech sector. And I personally am a tech user. I'm not a tech creator. You have to bear in mind that when we are talking ICT, BT, telecoms, tech sector, this is a tech creating sector. They create new stuff. Although there are many, many roles which are not in the creating tech kind of area, but it's always a support. Even if you are a lawyer, you need to understand bits of the tech if you want to write a patent for it, and so on. But it's so versatile. It is what our world is today. Wherever you go, if you want to have a job in farming or wherever you go, you can't get away from the computing anymore. Everything has a tech factor. And there is always the underlying math and always the underlying physics. Having said that, STEM, incredibly important, but recently I have seen STEM going over into STEAM. So you create the A for arts in it.
And what's, just because we get a lot of acronyms, what's STEM?
So STEM is short for science, technology, engineering, math. Did I get them all? Yes. Yeah. I'm not good in spelling.
And then STEAM, the A is arts. So, being more creative.
And the A in between then becomes for arts. We are living in a world where a lot of automation is happening. And even accountants these days apparently can be replaced by smart algorithms. So only the stuff where you have people interaction or creative processes, that is where you have a quite safe job, or where you, even if you're not in a job anymore that will bring you through for 50 years, but at least you will have a job where you get half a year's gig there and half a year's gig there and so on, and you will have continuous food on the table because you're wanted and you're good in what you are doing. Everything that is replaceable through machines over time will be replaced by machines. And young people these days, it's really hard to advise them because things develop so quickly, and technology is marvelous and gives all those opportunities, but is a little bit, has that flip side as well, where it takes away when it goes into automation and so on. So it is, I think, for young people, even if you're not a hacker or a coder, you need to be able to understand at least the basics of it. I had a lovely work experience student, and he was sort of, I don't like coding. And his task would involve a little bit of coding. And I said, right, what do you want to become then? I'm becoming a manager anyway. Right. So I said, okay, and if you're managing a team of coders and you have never coded yourself, you understand the project and everything, and your team is coming to you because you said, I want to have that and that way.
Yes.
And they then say, boss, sorry, but can't do that. It's just the technology and the platform we are using and so on. If you don't have basic knowledge about that, I'm an absolute rubbish coder. I was useless at university. I only just got through, But if I would be running a team, I could tell them, guys, don't fib me. I've done it myself. Might have been a few years back, but I know it's possible. Off you go, shush, Makes all the difference between how you can manage. So, yes, shopping around with skills that you can acquire, even if you never get really, really good at it, having the basics is really important. And by trying things out, you figure out what you actually like, because there's so much stuff out there. You just need to get your hands on and do. There are so many resources now outside in the virtual world where you can just try stuff.
And I know, talking about young people, I know we touched on sort of automation and, just making sure people have got basic knowledge of digital skills. And I know that's something that BT have been pioneering, because I know you have a lot of resources online to be able to support schools and colleges and young people to still learn about the world of work. And I know that through I Can Beer and my work in Ipswich, that we helped fund some virtual tours of BT. So in essence, sort of a virtual tour is a bit like Google Street View, but then you can actually have a nosy around Adastral Park and see where you work. And we can see it here as well. So that's on that's on your website, and I Can Beer. But students and young people can go on there and they can actually just have a look around, and better yet, they can then click on some of your colleagues, and then they will start educating them on BT, the tech sector, loads and loads of different stuff. So I think it's great to see just how much work BT is doing, and that students can still learn about the world of work. So we'll definitely include that in the description below as well.
Yes. And BT, sort of our BT group, not the Suffolk Adastral Park side of it, they have put fantastic resources to it. Oh, my computer went just all down. But if you go to the BT PLC and Skills for Tomorrow, I think it is called, there are loads of things where, because that's the nice thing about the virtual resources, it doesn't have to be local. You can just go. But the I Can BA is wonderful because it shows Adastral Park. It shows our apprentices. I know them personally, I see them, and I'm actually quite proud how well they are doing. They just walk into the camera and they talk, and they're incredibly confident. And I knew them from work experience. That was an incredible experience for me, that I had these shy little 15-year-olds for work experience, and they did well, but they were children. And then a couple of years later, all of a sudden they trot in with their new laptops in front of them, and I think, crikey, they even have grown.
I mean, what can what can a young person as an apprentice, what can they expect when they come to BT on their apprenticeship, just briefly?
So we are having research apprentices in my department where I'm sitting, but we have network apprentices. So the jobs in themselves are different, obviously, but you get a salary. So you get real money for yourself, where you can do whatever you want. You go to university. You will have an academic education at the same time where you do your hands-on education. And of course, hands-on in research means a different thing than it means for the networks or the softwares or the TV guys or in security. But they are fully integrated colleagues. They usually, for us, Andrew Corson, he's doing our skills and apprentice attraction scheme. And so he meets with them regularly, makes sure that, because they are asked to volunteer a lot as well, which is good for them because they get to know a lot of people. But you have to be very careful. As I said, it's hard for a young person to put a foot down and say, no, can't do. So we watch out for them, and we make sure they are integrated into their teams as well, into the rest of the apprentice community at Adastral Park. And I think some of the network and software apprentices, they go University of Suffolk. I'm not entirely sure. So they are local. They have their days off, and it's online learning as well. The research apprentices go for 1 or 2 weeks, once or twice a year, to Exeter. So they have a proper field trip out and get to encounter the proper university life. And I think that's a big difference to apprenticeship in my days, because you would have an apprenticeship and basically go to college at the same time. Here it's apprentice learning, but at the same time you go to university. We just figured, in hindsight, if you look at the history of BT, how broadband, everything, and Tommy Flower's network, how things came together. Whenever you make a match between academia and engineering and industry, that is when the magic happens. It's two fractions which function and think very differently in different time frames, in different depth, how they approach things. And there's always something missing in one or the other. If you can bring those two together, then all of a sudden the magic of innovation happens. And so for us, it's a no-brainer that we always see to bring our two people, bring that together in one head, the academic and the industry side of things. And we have apprentices who have been writing patents in their second year.
Wow.
So it is quite impressive, the drive that they are putting into it,
I think that's
stuff that they're learning. Yes.
I think that's brilliant. I mean, thank you for that insight as well, Rika, in terms of what an apprentice will expect when they go to BT. My last question. This was going to be my last question anyway, so somebody doesn't really like telepathic. There are a lot of young people out there who this time of year is already fraught with a lot of worry, anxiety, nerves, bit of excitement, depending on pathways. It's even more challenging for them now, given the circumstances we are under. What's your advice to any young person out there who is maybe watching this right now, will be, and thinking, I have no idea what I want to do, and what's your advice to them to address some of that worry?
See, sometimes my problem is I have too many interests. I like too many different things, and because I'm as good with my brain than as with my hands, not really good with either of them, but as good as. I have it really hard to decide. Do I want to do a brainy thing or a hands-on thing? Do I want to do rather something in a computer and build something, or do I want to organize something with people? I can do it all. So it's really sit down and think hard about the things that you loved doing, where you really feel happy with, and go back into your history, even when you were a little in, and write those things down and try to cluster them and play with those things. And for the rest of it, whatever you do, whatever you decide is better than no decision. Not taking a decision is the worst decision that you ever can take. Whatever job you do, as long as you're keeping your interest, your drive, keep your eyes and ears open, listen to people, take it on board, throw it away, depending, but stay interested, browse through things. Don't just dig yourself behind a games console. I'm not saying that gaming is bad. I completely changed my mind. Goodness me, I've been talking to gamers. But no, you need to have a balanced life. That's what I mean. And whatever you do, whatever your job get as a first job, this will not be your last job.
Yes,
that is not how the times are these days. In the olden days, you might have been stuck in that. These days, you take that job, you take the best out of that job, you learn about it, and while you then do, you look left, right, and center, and then you move forward from that. It's not that you have to take that decision now. You even can take a gap year. If you can afford, or you get sponsored, go abroad. Well, going abroad is not really an option these days, but you know what I mean. It's volunteering somewhere. All these things can be incredibly helpful. Do something good for others, and all of a sudden it might occur into your head what would be good for yourself. And you meet more people who give inputs and ideas.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Rika. I think a lot of that definitely resonates even with myself, so thank you. But very last question, I'm going to give you 60 seconds on this. What do you like about living and working in Suffolk? Assuming you're in Suffolk, right?
Yes, I live in Stowmarket. I used to live for 15 years in Casgrave, so a little bit closer to Ipswich, due to the fact that my ex-husband got a job at BT. So we lived close there, both worked there. And when I divorced, then I moved to Stowmarket. I wanted to be more in the countryside. I love Suffolk. If I want to have dramatic landscapes. I go on holidays. For living, this for me is a dream. It's calm. I have everything that I need. It's in 20 minutes I'm at the coast. 1 hour to Cambridge, 1 hour to London, 1 hour to Norwich. What else do you want? It's all there. And the main thing is it feels like home from home, because it's about the same countryside that I lived in and grew up in Germany. It feels like finding my roots again and settling down. And as of today, I am a British citizen. So I got
Congratulations.
my certificate this morning. And so, yes, it feels all right and in place. And in regards to the work, it really is. There is so much to do. There are so many youngsters in rural areas like I was when I was a youngster, and nothing has changed there. When you asked me to do this interview, I thought, what do I, old woman, have to contribute that a young person even would want to listen? Because I was thinking, oh God, what is this grandma saying? If I would have been in that position, right? But there are things which never change. The type of works change, but the pressures in society, the problems school systems are facing, all that never changes. And so we are dealing still with the same problems. And trust me, it will be all good.
God, what a brilliant way to end. Rika, I mean, thank you so much for sharing a coffee with me today. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I think you gave such good advice. So, yeah, just thank you so much for the work that you're doing at BT, that you're supporting me with on. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on, and looking forward to seeing you in person, hopefully again soon.
We need to have a proper coffee.
Yeah. Thanks, Rika.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
So, folks, that was Rika Nauck from BT and the Tommy Flowers Institute. There, absolute pleasure to be able to sit down and have a coffee, albeit virtually, with Rika, tell a little bit more about some of the work that she does at BT and the Tommy Flowers Institute. So, yeah, huge thank you to Rika. So that was today's session. On Thursday, I'll be speaking to a good friend of mine and owner of Affinity PR, Helen Oldfield. So Helen will be on talking to us about what is PR, all of the brilliant work that she's been doing, and an insight into that really exciting sector. So tune in on Thursday, 12:30, here at the same place, to hear from Helen Oldfield from Affinity PR. So thank you so much. Cheers.